Robert Restall and his wife Mildred had lived exciting and adventurous lives. Among other things, they had been daredevil motorcycle riders. The difficulties of Oak Island seemed almost trivial by comparison, yet they would discover that they had embarked on a journey that was far more dangerous than anything they had ever tried before.
The work that we have done has shown us that this is a genuine proposition. There's nothing false about it, and it's vaster by far than people ever imagined. We feel, I'm speaking for myself, I feel that the treasure is here and that we can get it, and we're going to stay here until we do.
Tragedy struck again in 1965 when Robert Restall, his son Robert Jr., Cyril Hiltz, and Carl Gracer died in a pit by the shore of Smith Cove as a result of poison gas.
Oak Island had now claimed 6 lives. By now, the location of the original pit was completely obscured. Various boreholes were identified by number. Finding a small chest, or even a large chest, more than 100 feet under the rock, mud, and clay of the island was taking on all the characteristics of the proverbial needle in a haystack. Then in 1967, a man by the name of Dan Blankenship, a Florida contractor, and a Montreal businessman, David Tobias, formed another treasure hunting syndicate called Triton Alliance. Blankenship had been on the island since about 1960 as the result of an article on Oak Island published in Reader's Digest. He was so convinced he could solve the puzzle, he sold everything and moved to the island. He is still there.
The land mass of Oak Island is owned by Oak Island Tours Incorporated. That's 78% of the island. And the 2 owners of that are Mr. Dan Blankenship, who owns 50%, and Mr. David Tobias, who owns 50%. Mr. David Tobias is the CEO of the company and has controlling vote. The other 22% of the island is owned by Mr. Fred Nolan, who owns lots 9 through 14, and Mr. Robert Young, who owns lot number 5. And that's the way the island, the land mass of the island is split up.
From a real estate point of view, Oak Island hardly meets the criteria of an excellent location. On the other hand, if digging for treasure is what your life is all about, owning your own island, complete with stories of pirates, playwrights, and plunder, you could hardly find a more enticing spot.
Treasure trove licenses are issued by the province of Nova Scotia, and on Oak Island in particular, the 3 owners have their own licenses to explore on the island for any treasure or archaeological or geographical significance that may be found on the island. Most of the exploration in recent years has been carried out by drilling for core samples, and the core samples are looking for indication of deformities in the surface of Oak Island, and as a result of that, there have been metal findings, there's been wood findings to indicate shafts, and there's also been findings of coconut fibers, which are not indigenous to this area, and this supports some of the theory of the treasures that are supposed to be hidden in Oak Island.
The Triton Corporation immediately began a series of test drills around what they believed to be the original location of the money pit, eventually drilling down to almost 200 feet. And here, if you'll pardon the pun, the mystery deepens. The drill plunged through into a cavern in the island's bedrock. Somewhere in the distant past, a significant underground project seems to have been carried out under the island. And as always, the elusive question, why?
Over the years, the search has evolved around 2 locations, the actual site of the money pit, and also 140 feet northeast was the site called Borehole 10X, which was an exploratory hole dug by Triton Alliance back in the 1970s. From this, they made some pretty amazing discoveries. At the bottom of this shaft, which is 230 feet, a chamber was discovered, a water-filled chamber. A camera was lowered into the water, and it sent back images that appeared on the monitor to be a human form. Also chest, perhaps oaken chest, and also items such as tools that may have been dropped into the shaft over the years.
The question of who could have built this astonishing masterwork was beginning to take on major proportions. The answer to that question just might provide the answer to what, if anything, was there. That conclusion appears, on the surface at least, to be what drives the ongoing search, in spite of a string of spectacular failures, stories of curses, and the simple fact that not so much as one thin dime has ever come out of the so-called money pit. Yet all this seems to have had no effect on the treasure seekers at all.
It's not so much the treasure that draws people to Oak Island as the mystery. Just about everyone who is involved in Oak Island at present is more interested in learning the answers and the solution to the mystery than getting rich by selling treasure.
For over 200 years, men and machines have been trying to discover the answers to these questions. With ever-increasing determination and the latest technologies, experts in various fields of endeavor have put everything they have, including their very lives, into solving this puzzle.
The last 10 years has been a relatively quiet period on the island. Probably the only thing of significance was in 1995. We did have a team from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, the same people that were involved in locating the Titanic. They spent 2 weeks on the island. Their survey of both the island and the bay surrounding the island certainly did nothing to discourage us that a treasure does exist on Oak Island.
The most recent activity in Oak Island was in 1999, and we had a private company come in under contract with Oak Island Exploration Company, and they did drilling and core sampling to find any voids that may have been in the earth. This would indicate that some of the voids would be attributed to shafts, etc. That would indicate that there was some treasure or something hidden down there at one point in time.
Could it be that the answer will be found by digging into history rather than digging on the island? Will finding out who was there and when tell us what might still be there? Is it possible the riddle was solved nearly half a century ago by a 4-year-old girl? Certainly one of the driving forces that keeps the Oak Island quest alive is the strange inscription on the stone discovered at the 90-foot level by those first diggers. In 1987, a retired senior editor of the National Geographic made an identical translation to the one provided by the Halifax University language professor. The editor said he simply applied Edgar Allan Poe's translation system from The Gold Bug. The symbol appearing most frequently will be an E, since that is the most frequently used letter in the alphabet. Here, it would be the 2 dots stacked vertically. The second word, then, is blank E-E blank. In a buried treasure, that can only be feet. We now have the symbols for F and T, which are also in the first word obviously a number. The word 40 fits the letter placements, which now give you O, R, and Y. 40 feet below, and so on. That would seem to work. What's more, the message, along with the method of coding, strongly suggests a pirate treasure. But did pirates have the technology it would require? Could they get along with each other long enough to complete any sort of building project, let alone something as complicated as the money pit? Perhaps they were more resourceful than we have been led to believe. And there are other clues that have a pirate's touch.